The Battle of Chancellorville. The battle was fought at Spotsylvania Country, Virginia, on April 26 to May 1, 1863. The battle began when the Union Army crossed the Rappahannock River, which caused the Confederates to retaliate. Joseph Hooker, commander of the Army of the Potomac, commanded the Union forces, while Robert E. Lee was commander-in-chief of Confederate forces. Lee's army and his ultimate command beat an overwhelmingly larger Union army. He also made very risky decisions on the battlefield. In fact, Chancellorsville is known as Lee's perfect battle. Hooker commanded 134,000 soldiers, while the Confederates had far fewer soldiers. Another strength for Hooker's army was having 400 artillery pieces. All of these strengths for the Union created a very powerful army. This was his chance to use this power and channel it through military strategy and play more offensively. So Hooker came up with a plan. The Hooker plan was intended to do the following criteria: catch Lee's army between two wings of the Union Army. Half of his forces will cross the Rappahannock River below the town of Fredericksburg. The other half will cross the Rappahannock upstream and attack the rear of Lee's troops. There was some spontaneous interference in Hooker's plan. The plan took effect at late April due to weather. Confederate General J.E.B. surveillances the Hooker plan and told Lee. Lee evaluated what he heard. He knew it was wise to retreat because of how clearly well the Hooker plan would go and how powerful Hooker's army was. Despite of these issues, he decided not to retreat. To Lee, the decision was not a matter of defense, but the better strategy was to go on the offense, and he kept this pattern throughout the battle and tactics. He split up his army. He left Jubal early at Fredericksburg with 30 pieces of artillery and 8,500 infantrymen. The remainder of Lee's troops went to the area of Chancellorsville and stayed there in offensive positions. When Hooker arrived at Chancellorsville, he ordered his troops to be in defensive positions. He built defensive positions around Chancellorsville to the Rappahannock River. Hooker went from an offensive campaign to a defensive campaign. These defensive positions overwhelmed the Confederates, who were ready to attack the offensive Union army. But it turned out the Union was defensive. He had to do something at this point. Lee knew that Hooker's right flank was weakest. Lee ordered Stonewall Jackson to take 30,000 troops and go to a place to get into offensive positions to attack Hooker's right flank. While Jackson was making this very important military move, in order for the Union not to detect that Jackson was making this move, Lee caused a distraction by stretching about 14,000 troops over a 3-mile line. Despite Lee's efforts at a distraction, Hooker knew what Jackson was up to, so he ordered someone to be on the lookout. Jackson and his men arrived at their intended position to attack Hooker's right flank at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon and set up battle lines 2 miles long. Finally, the Confederates attacked the Exi Corps. Jackson rode to the Exi killings to survey the situation. Then he rode back to Confederate lines and got mistaken as a Union soldier. He got shot 3 times. 8 days later, Jackson died because of the accidental wounds he received. The battle ended when Hooker kept commanding his troops to fall back until they recrossed the Rappahannock River in defeat. Lee and his army were victorious.